Welcome to Jonah Group Bible Study, Part 4 of 6. And what is a purpose of a webinar? To set expectations, first we're going to provide training so that you can use your Logos program even better. But we're also going to provide training so you can study the topic for yourself. There's only so much we can cover in our short time together tonight, but by recording the video, you can watch it later, and also we'll give you the tools so you can go even further in in-depth study of this book, Jonah. Along the way, we're going to provide biblical insights related to the topic, and that really is the primary purpose of this type of webinar, the group Bible study. We're going to be heavily focused on getting as much out of the Jonah book as possible, and also using the tool along the way. And then we're going to provide materials so you can equip yourself and others. Now, at the LearnLogos.com Jonah website page, so let me go there and bring that in real quick. So if you go to LearnLogos.com/Jonah, that's all you got to do to type in. That'll bring you to our Jonah Bible Study page, and there you'll get a list of the links to all the presentations, the meeting times. You have a link to the faithlife.com community group. There you'll find download links to download the latest symbols, the highlighting symbols for Jonah, and I just updated those tonight. So you have the theological symbols, you can download those, and then you have the Jonah book symbols, you can download those as well. And actually it's no longer chapter 1, it's just chapter 1 through 3 at this point, so you'll get them all. And then also there's a free personal book, and normally that's only available with the purchase of the webinar, but I want to make that available to you for free. Once you download it, there's instructions on how to turn that into a personal book. The wonderful, neat thing about this personal book is we've made some enhancements. So there actually is places where you can type in your notes after each of these questions. Now, not only is it like a workbook in the sense of adding information, but we have links to books, we have specialized searches, we have collection information here, so you can create collections. And it's all in here from week 1 all the way through week 5. Actually, the next session I've already updated. So if you go and re-download the personal book right now, you should get week 5 as well. So that'll be Jonah chapter 4. And then we'll still do one more week after that when we go into some of the difficult issues and important themes and so forth. So that is free of charge, and you can have that to help you get more out of the Jonah book study. So very excited, and that is a tool to equip you to get more out of the study. So very excited to have that. Just a quick reminder that the webinar will be edited, probably released in a few days. So since you've signed up, you'll automatically be notified when the download's available. We do charge $4.99. It's a 50% discount off the normal price of $9.99. And then also, if you haven't taken advantage of the in-depth training, please do that. This training is unique because it really is 3 things combined into one. First, we're going to overview all the features of Logos. Second, we're going to introduce you to over hundreds of books that are both in your library and recommend books that you should add to your library. And these books are broken down into categories for Bible study. So best books on prayer, best books on word studies, etc. And then the green DVD, or part 3, is really the key that unlocks it all for you. We're going to show you how to actually study the Bible with Logos. We're going to help you set up collections, help you set up layouts, organize how you'll study, organize your searches. It really is designed to take you further and deeper. And there really is nothing out there like this that brings all 3 together in an affordable way. If you want to pick up that, you have a download option, a DVD only option, and then of course you can do the download with the DVD, which serves a great backup. And you can get more information at LearnLogos.com/buy now. So let's go to the next slide here. Here is our schedule for 2014 live training events, and it's LearnLogos.com/events. And let me just go there for a minute because I want to show you something really quick. So let me do this, LearnLogos.com/events. And besides the training, we show you the list of all the events that we've had this year. Still got quite a few more months here. But also, if you email me your suggestion for 2015 and we take advantage of that suggestion, you will get that webinar for free. There's been some great suggestions already. I'm very excited about that. So please, if you've got some ideas, don't hesitate and jump in. We'll be putting the training schedule together for 2015, probably in the next 30 days or so. Very excited for that. So let's go back to the slideshow. What else is coming up the rest of this month and into October? Well, in 2 weeks from today, we're going to deal with practical theology and biblical counseling with Logos. We're going to show you some of the best books for biblical counseling. We're going to show you some important themes in biblical counseling, how to use counseling for your own sanctification, and how you can help others as well. We'll talk about other resources beyond Logos for additional training if you want to become a biblical counselor and so forth. So check that out. That should be a very interesting and unique training session. Then Monday, 2 weeks after that, October 13th, we're going to show you how to analyze and refute other religions with the Bible and Logos. This is going to be a fascinating apologetic type webinar where we're going to equip you with the tools and resources and the questions and how you can really take any false religious system and confront it with the biblical truth in a practical way. So I'm very excited to equip you with that. And then 2 weeks after that, we're going to come to Jonah Part 5, and that will be, again, Jonah Chapter 4. So we'll be, in a sense, wrapping up the preliminary study of Jonah, but there still will be one more session. We're going to go back, review, and hit some of the major themes in Jonah, like who God is and repentance and faith and so forth. So check that out at LearnLogos.com/events. Now, tonight we're going to take a little bit different approach. We're still going to show you how to use Logos, but we're going to try to involve a little more question and answer in here. What we're going to do is have these question slides pop up, and that will allow you to have some time to think about the question, and then we'll actually dive into Logos to show you how we can answer that question. So this first one that I want to start off with, but what passage in Jonah did the word of the Lord come to Jonah the first time? Now hold off on the answer. We're going to come back to that, but I want to get started with a couple preliminary training things in the Logos software. In the syllabus, in the personal book, we start off first with some highlighting. So let's show you where that highlighting tool is. So we go to Tools, we go to Highlighting, and you should have the Jonah. Now remember, you can go to Faith Life at the Jonah link, so LearnLogos.com/Jonah. You'll see the link to the Faith Life page, and you can download this toolbar, and you'll get all the symbols in there as well. You can also create this by scratch. So we've given you all the symbols to download so you can create your own special highlighting toolbar. And again, this isn't just for chapter 1. This will be for all the chapters. The first task really is Jonah chapter 3, is I've identified some of the significant items that you should be on alert for, that you need to make observations for. So I'm going to go and open my New American Standard Bible. I'm going to use that translation for tonight. And so New American Standard. Now, what I recommend, and we've been doing this for each week, is identifying some key items to observe. Now, it's one thing to read the text and identify. So, for example, if we go to verse 1, we read that now the word of the Lord came to Jonah. So what we can do is we can select Jonah, we can click on the Jonah icon, and now the Jonah will be highlighted, and there he goes. And now all the highlights for the Jonah are turned on automatically. So I've gone ahead and done some highlighting, so you're seeing that pop up. Now, what you want to do with the markups is you have two strategies. Strategy 1 is simply to go through and mark all the places where Jonah is, then come back and make a list of what you learned. So let's do it that way. Now, the first way is to read through the passage and try to identify where Jonah's mentioned. So we see that it says the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. He's commanded to arise and go to Nineveh, the great city, and proclaim to it, which I'm going to tell you. So that you is definitely Jonah. Now, once you mark up the first time, you don't have to go back to your toolbar and click it again. You still need to select it, but there's a shortcut that you can click on, and it simply is in the PC Control-K. And if you select the text and press Control-K, it will remember the last highlight you used and use that highlight to highlight. So that'll make life a whole lot easier. Jonah arose, want to highlight that, and he went to Nineveh according to the word of the Lord. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly great city, a 3 days walk. Then Jonah began to go through the city 1 day's walk, and he cried out and said, yet 40 days, and Nineveh will be overthrown. Now we transition to the people of Nineveh. Now let's pause here for a moment, and let me show you another way by which you can identify Jonah in the passage, and it'll be a helpful way. So let's go to the search box, and then we're going to click on clause search. Now, if you've never used the clause search, this is really handy, but there's a couple things you need to know up front. Now, first, it's selected as all passages. We can leave that there, or we could actually go in and put in just Jonah 3, which I'm going to do just so you can see this in action. Now, I type in Jonah 3, and then I like to select the text and copy and paste it. I like to have the text repeated in both boxes. That way, the actual text range matches the actual range title. And then we'll hit save. Now, notice the window menu doesn't close, but if you look at the top, my search range did change. So what I recommend you do is just press the escape button, and that'll make the menu go away. Now, the next thing you need to do is choose the right Bible. The clause search is broken into two Bibles, the Greek New Testament and the Lexham Hebrew. So obviously, we're in the Old Testament. We need the Hebrew Bible. Then we have to put in a special code called person, because we're searching for a person, Jonah. And then we press enter. Now, why are we using the clause search? What advantage does this have over simply reading the text? Well, let me show you. First, it's going to find all the places where Jonah is literally mentioned. That is when we see the word Jonah. But the clause search can also find the places where Jonah is being spoken to, and also where he's being mentioned or referred to by a pronoun. Very significant help there. So if we scroll down, we see Jonah 3:1, 3:2, arise, go to Nineveh. So we've read those passages. But now let's come to verse 5 and see what comes after that. Now, it turns out that really Jonah 3:4 is the last place that's mentioned. Actually, Jonah 3:6, my mistake. So Jonah began to go through the city in verse 4, and he was preaching, and then he says this in verse 6. He rose from his throne, laid aside his robe, and covered himself with sackcloth and sat on ashes. Now, why is Jonah coming back in verse 6? Because the word that reached the king came out of the mouth of Jonah. So there is an indirect relationship here. And this is very helpful. It can make you think more thoroughly to make better observations of the text. So the other advantage of this is that we now know Jonah is not mentioned in the rest of the chapter. So we know that other people are. And so this is a wonderful tool and a great complement. I would use it as a check. So after you read through the text manually, you can go back and say, okay, did I miss anything? Now, the downside is the clause search doesn't automatically highlight the text for you. There's no make filter. So you have to go through, read the text, and mark it manually for yourself. All right, now that we've identified all the places in Jonah, chapter 3, where Jonah's mentioned, the next step to improve our observations is to write down what we learn about Jonah in chapter 3. So I'm just going to go to Documents, and I'm going to type in Jonah. And I have several notes with Jonah, and I think that's due to the community group. I've got something like 50 of these things. I'm not quite sure how that all happened, but in either case, I'll just pull up one of these Jonah 3 just to keep it simple. So what I've done is I have put in Jonah as my title. And the way I did that is I just simply clicked Add Note, and then I made it the title, and then I identified the passage where Jonah is mentioned. So I have Jonah 3:1, and then I write down what I've observed. In this case, the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. And I put second time because we know that we came to him a first time. We'll come to answer that question in a minute. We have in Jonah 2:2. Now, let me add that, Jonah 3:2. And he is, arise, go to Nineveh, the great city, and proclaim it the proclamation which I'm going to tell you. So he has to go to Nineveh, and he has to proclaim a specific message. So go to Nineveh and proclaim a specific message. So he is going to go to Nineveh, and then God is going to give him the specific content of what he needs to say. Then the next passage, verse 3, is Jonah arose, and he went to Nineveh. So this time he's obedient to God. Okay, now we go to verse 4, and we write down that Jonah began to go through the city 1 day's walk. So from the previous passage, we saw 3 days walk. We see here that Jonah's going through, and it's 1 day's walk at this point. And he cries out and he said, yet 40 days and Nineveh will be overthrown. Okay, so we write down Jonah 3:4, goes through the city. He's one day walking, cries out judgment. And in verse 4, we find out the content of his proclamation, 40 days, Nineveh will be overthrown. All right, and then that's pretty much it. After that, Jonah's really not talked about. We start to learn about the people. Now, we're not going to go through every one of these words, but I have those in there for you so you can do this on your own, but now you've got the basic skill set to do that. And so the ones you want to focus on is Nineveh. Look at how the people respond, and we will talk about all these throughout. We're just not going to be highlighting them. Also, look at faith. Very important component in this chapter. Also, we need to look at the proclamation of Jonah and the proclamation of the king. And then we need to lastly look at God and what he did and did not do. Those are the items that you want to highlight and take notes on. Now, the next step after observation, I think you should do, and we'll take a little bit of time to do this, is to use Anderson Forbes syntax. Now, don't get scared when you hear that, to make a basic outline of the text. This is really important and a great way to slow you down the observation process and see the structure. Now, I've got training on my training bundles, and I've got training in the inductive, preparing sermons, and also the Bible study where I show you different examples using the syntax for the Old Testament and syntax for the New Testament. But let's just take a few minutes to just walk you through this process. Again, we've done this a couple times, but I think it's important to get some more practice. So I'm going to type in, I'm going to go to the library icon, I'm going to type in Anderson, and I'm looking for the book that is Anderson Forbes, here's the key word, phrase marker analysis. So if you type in Anderson with an E and then float your mouse over the book title, you'll then see the full title, and we got phrase marker analysis. So let's go ahead and open up that. Now, at first blush, this is going to overwhelm you, but in the next few minutes, we'll really keep this simple. Now, the first thing you have to do is to change the look of the graph so it's more conducive for this next action. So to do that, we're going to click on Display, and notice the options that I have. Supraclausal, clause immediate, and English gloss. Those are the only ones that are checked. If phrase, lexeme, or part of speech is checked, go ahead and uncheck that. That'll make it a whole lot easier to view. Then the first thing we're going to do is go to Jonah 3:1. There's two ways to do this. You can open up a Word document and write this down, or you can open up a note document, or you can even open up the sentence diagramming tool. So I'm going to open up the sentence diagramming tool, sentence diagram, Jonah 3:1 through 10. And I'm going to dock this so it's a little more user-friendly here. Now, I've already done this to save some time, but I want to show you first the destination, then we'll actually go back and do this. Let me insert a passage. I'm going to do a brand new one first, just so you can see how I got here. So, Documents, Sentence Diagram, and then we're going to choose Insert Passage, and we're going to put in Jonah 3. Then we're going to put in, after we put Jonah 3 in, we want to press Enter, make sure the passage is selected, choose our favorite translation, make sure you choose Text Flow Diagram. Very important you do that. And then you can leave this other one, manuscript or no alternate, doesn't matter. Then we click Insert. Now what's going to happen is the whole text of Jonah 3 is going to come in at once. Now I do not recommend putting any more than a chapter at a time. Now once you do this, I recommend just deleting the chapter reference, left click on the bar, move it up, and let's change the title to Jonah 3. And that's just a real simple process. Now, the two bars, there's one on the left of the text and one to the right on the text. The one on the left moves the whole content. The one on the right changes how far the text will flow. Now, you'll notice that there's another blue line that represents the page break. If you're going to print out your sentence diagrams, then you want to leave about 1/4 of an inch space, because when you go to print, the printer will see that blue line and kind of create space between it. And so it actually won't print out the blue line, but about 1/4 before and 1/4 after will be kind of removed from the printing. So very important that you don't cross that page break. That's kind of where we're going with that. Now, what we're going to do with the text in here is move the text around so we can see the main ideas of the text. And that's why we're doing this. So I'm going to minimize this. And so now you can see the final work here. I've got, now the word of the Lord came to Jonah the second time, saying, arise, go to Nineveh, the great city, proclaim it the proclamation, which I'm going to tell you. And then Jonah arose. So you can see with this diagram that I've created that there's some main ideas here. The word of the Lord coming to Jonah, his 3 commands. Notice that we indented, which I'm going to tell you. So how do we get from the syntax to this? Well, let's take a look and see.